Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Inside the Newsroom. I'm Maddie Paul. Inside the Newsroom, we bring you the trending stories of the KELOLAND area, and then there's my favorite part of all. We bring in our newsroom staff members to talk about these trending stories. So you get a behind-the-scenes perspective about the passions and the storytelling that goes behind the news that you see every day on our newscasts and online at KELOLAND.com, whether it's reporters or producers or even your favorite meteorologists. Speaking of favorite meteorologists, we have one returning back to KELOLAND after an exciting vacation, Brian Carstens. Welcome back to work.
Yes.
You thought you could escape.
It's good to be back. Yeah. We took a nice vacation with my boys out to Colorado.
Lovely.
Yeah, did some mountain climbing, and we did some whitewater rafting and rock climbing, all the rest. So
wow. Have you been to Colorado before?
We have. Yeah, this was our third trip out there in the last 5 years. So you never know what the future brings, but I wanted to go out again one more time, and it worked out well. So we took a week off and had good travels. It's a long ways out on a ride out with a bunch of boys in the Suburban, but we made it work, and they had a good time. And it's nice to sleep in my own bed, though, again.
Oh, that sounds nice. Comfortable. You know, I was uncomfortable last week. I hope you like heat, but it was cold here in South Dakota.
I heard that. Yeah, it got kind of cool and wet. And then, of course, now this week, well, just the opposite. As I come back to work, and now we're talking heat advisories again out there.
Maybe as you left, you brought the heat with you, and now that you're coming back, you're bringing it back because it was just so cold. I love heat, Brian. So I was giving Scott a lot of smack about how cold it was. He really got it. He really got it. I'm sure he'll tell you when he comes back. But
I noticed he had all the cold weather information in the computer here from last week, and yeah, the highs were definitely chilly, but we're gonna fully make up for that this week. We've got heat advisories out there. In fact, today's outlook, we've got basically Mitchell, Yankton, West, all the way out to Winter and Pierre, a heat advisory in effect. So that means the heat index will be around 100, maybe a little higher in some spots. So as always, we advertise that you drink lots of water. You got to stay hydrated in these kind of conditions. And then, of course, pace yourself. Don't, if you can save your work and do it later in the day, or kind of, pivot to tomorrow morning and do it during the cooler parts of the day, that's the best advice. Some of you don't have that option, so just make sure you're taking that into consideration. And it's not just today, because, Maddie, tomorrow could be worse, actually.
How could it be worse?
Oh, just wait. Heat index map. This is another thing that we showed earlier today, and I wanted to give the audience here just a quick update on this. So this is basically computer model forecast. So we're looking at some rough numbers here, but we fully agree Sioux Falls will be about 95 today, is what it'll feel like here for the rest of the afternoon. 100s around Winter and Chamberlain. But look at this.
Looking.
Tomorrow afternoon, that's 103 in Sioux Falls, 108 in Mitchell, and a 109 is showing up around Marshall, Minnesota.
Wow.
And that one I've seen as high as 110. So we really got to pay attention. Now, there's a couple other things to remember. Look at the arrows, the movement of the air on this map. So you get some wind currents, probably looking at Sioux Falls 15 to 30 on the wind, so you can stir the air up. But the fact is there's a lot of humidity and just a plain old hot day here. So and my other concern, too, with this map is that that's going to funnel in some extreme instability for thunderstorms in the Northeast. And that's a separate topic, but we will be addressing that one, too, as we go through the next couple of days. Here's some good news.
Yay.
Yep. If you're not such a fan of 100-degree heat index numbers, well, Wednesday it does come down, and that's coinciding with some thunderstorms that should start to come through the region. Our 7-day forecast, we've upped our chances of rain in Sioux Falls Wednesday into Thursday, at least 40 to 50%. So I think there's a pretty good cause here that we'll be able to slash those numbers at least for a little while. But the weekend is already looking hot. We're seeing the end of the month of July. There's still plenty of room for heat to come back. So
good. This is good news to me. But, severe weather, I'm getting used to it now this July. I'm sure we all are. But with this current future cast, too, you were mentioning that maybe some thunderstorms could be a little bit unstable maybe. What else are you expecting for severe weather for the rest of the week?
Yeah, and that's a good topic to bring up because last night we had some really rough weather around Mission and Valentine, Nebraska. We had baseball to softball size hail. In fact, that storm out near Mission, near Parmalee, started with dry lightning that ignited fires. And then as the fire departments are responding to that, they had a tornado that developed, and consequently, too, then the hail that fell just to the left of the tornado. So it was a kind of a bizarre combination.
Severe weather mess.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's been isolated, though, the last 24 hours. We haven't had widespread severe weather. We certainly had a little bit this morning in the Northeast. And this map here that we're looking at is the day 2 outlook from the Storm Prediction Center. So this takes us into Tuesday.
Okay.
And it's still a marginal for most of South Dakota, but that target zone in the Northeast, that's under a slight risk, and that could be altered a little bit. I think there's some opportunity there that might be expanded. Obviously, we're going to keep a close eye on thunderstorms as we get this cold front to come in. And I do think that Wednesday, Thursday, there will be additional chances of severe weather. So it's always our talking point here. Have the Storm Tracker app ready to go on your mobile device because you get all of those push notifications for severe weather. And yeah, we're going to have to run this pattern. I'm pretty much thinking the next 5 to 10 days, we're going to have more episodes of storms here in our forecast.
I feel like that's just been the trend for July. Even a little bit of June is all severe weather modes, at least at risk, whether it happens or not. We've always been watching this risk. Has that been kind of common historically for July here?
Yeah, it does. It tends to ramp up, usually June. And this year, I thought June was a little slow to kind of, as far as the pacing of severe weather. We waited until that 3rd, 4th week, and then things started to really come about. Now we're kind of in that typical midsummer pattern where you get some nocturnal storms that can be severe, you get some heavy rain, things kind of pop up, it's not necessarily organized rain all the time. And that's kind of the traditional thing as we go into August. But I am still interested this summer if the worst of the heat, I know we're seeing it now a little bit more this week, but I think there's still going to be some hot weather this summer going into early August. So be thankful if you've been getting rain. I know our garden is looking really good, but yeah, things change quickly. So be thankful if you've had rain. There are some of you out there I know that are really dry in central South Dakota. So hopefully some of these new thunderstorms can clip some of those areas as well.
You're talking about how we might feel the heat going into fall or August. I thought it felt like fall last week. I don't know, something in the air, even just like smelling it, that may sound weird, but even smelling it, I was like, why does this feel like pumpkin season? Like, why do I want the leaves to start turning
already? To
get my sweater?
Yep, and it's nice to get those nice cold fronts for a little bit in the summer, but then, yeah, you always go back to the heat and humidity. And so, yeah, ultimately, if you're a fan of the summer weather, don't worry. There's going to be plenty more of this where we're seeing this pattern emerging now. And ultimately, too, as the corn and the crops in our region grow, they just recycle moisture. We've done stories on that over the years, too. And boy, what a change. When I left South Dakota last week, and then coming back, it always amazes me how much it changes in a week and how much it's grown even in our garden. That the sweet corn is tasseling and the ears are starting. So bountiful harvest, hopefully for some of you in the garden, and keep those hailstones away. That's
that would be nice for your garden, especially. Yeah. Well, Brian, thank you so much for joining me here at the Digital Desk with that update.
You bet.
Thank you. And still to come on Inside the Newsroom, we are talking about a weekend story where a Ukrainian family's fight has been to stay in the United States. Our reporter is joining us next with those details. Stay with us. Welcome back to Inside the Newsroom. A family from Mariupol, Ukraine, has called Watertown home for nearly 2 years. And recently, they were told that they need to leave the country in under a month. Jordan DeSmit reports.
Right now, Ilona and Valery Biliazi and their 3 children live a quiet life. But that wasn't the case a few years ago as war started in Ukraine.
And after the war, we had to move because it was not safe.
After multiple moves, the family made it to Watertown thanks to the United for Ukraine program.
The United for Ukraine program allows them to live in the United States for a 2-year humanitarian parole.
Susan Bueller and her husband took in the Bialiazis until they were able to rent their own home. During their stay in Watertown, Valeri has worked in construction and Alona has given birth to a baby boy.
I've never seen family love their kids as much as this family. They give them everything.
This is good for my kids, good school, good people.
But the family needs to leave by August 17th, and multiple attempts to apply for asylum have been denied.
To be granted asylum, a lot of people don't understand all the legalities of it. You have to fear persecution of your own country. And in this case, they do not fear Ukraine, they fear Russia.
And they also fear they don't have a place to return to.
Where their home was, a fourth of Ukraine is now occupied by Russia. They have no home to go home to.
Now, another reason why the family wants to stay here in Watertown is because they say the community has been with them every step of the way.
We want to stay here and live all life. We like here.
But as of right now, the family does not have a plan if they're unable to stay here, and they have less than a month to figure one out.
Jordan DeSmit joining us now at the digital desk to talk a little bit more about this story. Because, Jordan, this just seems like a really kind family that's been living here for over the past 2 years. What else did you learn about them?
I mean, yeah, I would say I was able to meet their two other kids as well. And their two other kids were really nice, really polite. They're both involved in sports around Watertown. They're normal kids, and they just want to stick around for a while.
And you're talking about the kids right there, and obviously their father working construction, their mother just having another baby. How connected did you find the family to be in Watertown, even coming from a different country?
I would say the family itself is really tight-knit, and they're also a member of a church over there, Cornerstone Church, and the church has done a really good job of taking them in. And they even, I think some people from the church, and I think maybe other people in town, I'm not for sure, but there's a lot of people that even chipped in and bought Alona a car. She got her driver's license. That was another thing I didn't put in the story, but Alona was the first person in her family to get her driver's license, right? So they've done a really good job of working hard and finding a life for themselves in Watertown.
Wow. So that's just a great example of how welcoming the people of Watertown have been to this family. What other ways have you heard Watertown welcome the family?
I mean, just being kind, right? I mean, these people are in a completely new environment, completely new place, and that can be overwhelming for anyone. I remember I was overwhelmed going to college like an hour away from my house. I can't imagine how they're feeling now. Right. And it's just being a constant presence and helping them out, and then just helping them try to live a normal life here in South Dakota.
And so obviously they're under a deadline to either get their visas or potentially leave the country. But why does the family want to share their story now?
I mean, I would say the biggest thing is they want as many eyes on this as possible because they need advice on how they can stay. I think they're at a point right now where they've feel like they've run out of options, right? They feel like they've done everything they can to try to stay here. And I think now they're just trying to get a hold of the people in charge and try to persuade them and try to change their minds.
Is there anything you heard from this family that you thought could have made it into your story but didn't, or anything else that they shared with you that stood out to you?
I would say one big thing is just how hospitable they were. They were so kind. And I remember that one of their teenage son, I remember he shook my hand and he made sure he shook it firm and he looked me right in the eyes. And I remember their sponsor, Susan, was like, good job. That's what we've been teaching you, right? So, I mean, they were just so nice. They were really nice people, offered me something to drink, something to eat, and they just seemed really grateful and a really kind and genuine family.
We're learning about their kindness. We're learning about their ambition to stay here in South Dakota. Is there anything else that you would like viewers to take away from this story?
I mean, no, I would say just make sure that you understand what they're going through and share the story, and we'll see if we can find a way to help them stay here.
Well, thank you for talking about these details with me at the digital desk, Jordan. And still to come on Inside the Newsroom, we are looking at how a new property tax bill could impact some smaller but high-growing population towns in South Dakota. Stay with us. A digital reporter is joining us at the desk next on Inside the Newsroom. Welcome back to Inside the Newsroom. A new law that caps property tax increases for the next 5 years is causing South Dakota cities to lose millions in revenue. Joining us now is our digital reporter, Gracie Terrell, who's been talking to many cities who may be seeing an impact from Senate Bill 216. Gracie, can you just explain what this bill was that is now a law?
Yeah, so Senate Bill 216, which just passed this past legislative session, it caps residential property taxes at a 3% increase from 2027 to 2031. So for about a 5-year period, cities will not be able to raise property taxes more than 3% for those years. And there are some cities that are concerned about that because of the growth of the cities is higher than that 3%. So some cities are worried about maybe having to cut back on some of those city projects and things to kind of make up some of those projected lost revenue income.
One of your first stories that you did last week about this subject was just looking at Sioux Falls and looking at potentially, 6 to 10 million that could be cut over the next couple of years. But with this story that I want to talk about specifically, you looked at the smaller, I want to say, quote unquote, cities like T and Harrisburg, even though that they are growing in population. What have you heard that would cause this new law to affect them?
Yeah, so this kind of came about from during a press conference with Sioux Falls Mayor Paul Tenhaken. He was talking about some of the concerns with the percentage of what is going to need to be cut from the city budget, and he made kind of an offhanded comment of T and Harrisburg, it's going to be even worse for them because of the amount of people they have, the budget that they have, and the amount that they will need to cut. So that's kind of where it started, where I was like, well, we need to hear from T and Harrisburg about this too, and kind of how they're going to be impacted in their approach to these, potential cuts here. So when I spoke with them, they're kind of in the earlier stages, since there are smaller cities, and Sioux Falls is kind of trying to get ahead of those things. But they are, it's about in between, 4 to 5 million. It's 4 to 5 million for Harrisburg, and then 5.2 million for T, I believe. And they are 5-ish million each for those cities that have about 14% each growth rate for the year. So that will be both of the city leaders that I spoke with said that will be kind of a bigger impact. And right now they've kind of are just talking about some of those quality of life projects. So maybe some road maintenance, or T's looking at a dog park that they're trying to get put in. So those things might be pushed back or delayed by a few months or years.
Is there anything else that these cities leaders told you that kind of stood out to you as you were putting the story together?
Oh man, not really. I mean, I think just I think it was Harrisburg that I kind of, when I was talking with the city administrator, broke things down a little bit in terms of what their budget is and then how much they would be needing to cut. And that's about 50% of their budget. So I thought that was kind of a big number there. But other than that, I think it's still early in the process right now. And these cities on the city side of things, they're worried. But, there's always the property owners that are still, they are excited about this bill that is now a law, and their property taxes not going up, high amounts every single year. So there's two sides to this. So we'll see what it looks like from what that looks like in come 2031.
Yeah. Well, Gracie, thank you so much for joining me here at the Digital Desk, and great updates for both the Sioux Falls story and then also these small town stories. And viewers, if you would like to read Gracie's story, you can just scan that QR code that you see right now on your screen to take you to KELOLAND.com to read Gracie's stories. And stick with us for Inside the Newsroom. We're going to wrap things up when we come back after the break. Well, that's all the time that we have today for Inside the Newsroom. Thank you so much for joining us today, even after we're coming back from a fun weekend. Now we're heading into a hot work week, and that's okay, because every day you can watch Inside the Newsroom at 1 o'clock, and maybe we can help you cool down a little bit. And stick around on KELOLAND Plus. Tonight at 6:30, we have Eye on KELOLAND Rewind, and this is a show where we combine all of our week-long Eye on KELOLAND stories into one spot, so you could just see the stories, your favorite stories from the past week, all in one spot. Again, that's at 6:30 only here on KELOLAND Plus. So we'll see you then. And then tomorrow at 1 o'clock, we'll see you for the next Inside the Newsroom. Until then, have a great day, everyone.